What is up, everybody? I'm so excited to finally be back. This has kind of been a podcast where we end up just recording when and how we feel. And so I want to be more consistent moving forward. But for now, just enjoy these little one-off moments when I'm able to jump on and share some of the things that I've been thinking about. And particularly for everybody listening, those of you who we like to call lab rats, the people who want to continue to develop, to grow, both creatively, entrepreneurially, and hopefully to become a better person. I've had some things kind of on my mind lately that I feel like isn't spoken about enough in context of business. And particularly what I want to talk about today is having grace in business. I've heard Alex Hormozy talk about this a little bit several months ago, and I've just had a lot of realizations and things, kind of memories coming back to me about why it's important to have grace in business, particularly like being the bigger man and being a good person. You know, when I think about how petty I have been at different times in my life, I always think back to an experience of me and my brothers. We had this ditch in front of our house. And inside of the ditch, there were a ton of garter snakes, and we loved these snakes. We'd go pick them up. We'd hold them. Talmadge, who's in here recording in the studio with me, he'd put them down his shirt to show how brave he was. And we loved these garter snakes, and we'd always be hanging out with them, playing with them, and all that stuff. Well, one day we look out our front window, and there are some people who lived across the street from us. The kids were a little more rough. They weren't always very nice. And we saw them inside of our ditch playing with our snakes. And for me, I just saw red. I was so frustrated. This is our turf. This is our place. Those are our snakes. And so me and my brothers, we went out there with some buckets and we grabbed every garter snake we could see and we put them inside of our bucket and left and walked away. And those kids probably don't remember that. They probably are like, well, that's super lame, and walked away. But that kind of stuck with me. And I look back now and think about how petty was that? How small-minded was that? That's mine. I don't want to share. I'm taking this with me. And I think all of us have that petty side. We have that side of us that's a little more childish, that's a little more selfish, that won't forgive and forget and move on. And I think for a lot of us, that can translate over into many areas of our life. And particularly, I'm thinking about having grace in business and why it's important, and trying to shed that weaker version of myself and all of us to help us become more successful. So I want to break down a scenario for you. So let's say you were working with this client, and the client is, you were excited about the opportunity. Maybe they didn't pay you as much as you wanted, but you were excited to have the chance to maybe break into a new industry. Maybe they'd pay you an exposure, whatever it was. You did the project. At the end of the day, you didn't feel very appreciated. Maybe they undercut you on things. Maybe they scope creeped and add a bunch more projects or a bunch more deliverables or things that you beyond what you wanted and what you expected. And for whatever reason, it ended up kind of being a sour experience. It wasn't like the best experience you've ever had. Many of us, especially in the film industry and especially in like entrepreneurial circles, I think we like to sometimes just sit around and complain. We like to share and swap horror stories because, it's validating. It makes us feel better about our circumstance. I'm not the only one, who got taken advantage of. Oh, here's a story about what happened to me, or, oh, that happened to you too. Cool. And we like to swap and talk about those things. And I think to some degree that can be healthy if you have, a small circle of friends and people that you trust. You want to be able to talk about and open up about those things. But more often than not, I feel like so many of us can get caught in a negative cycle of talking crap on other people and expressing frustration. And where I think this actually truly is a disservice, while yes, maybe it temporarily alleviates some of your frustration, there's a couple of negative things that come along with having negative talk, and particularly not having grace in business in the way you speak about other people that you dealt with. Number one, if you had a bad experience with a client, the more you talk about it, the more angry you're going to get, the more frustrated you're going to get, the more pain it's going to continue to cause, rather than just the initial pain of maybe not making as much money as you hoped, maybe not feeling as valued as you wanted, maybe having to put in more time than you expected. That initial pain is only going to continue. The ripples are only going to continue to impact you and affect you if you continue to talk about it. You're going to leave that negativity in your life, and you're going to continue to be holding on and harboring that frustration. I think it was Buddha or somebody wise once said that holding on to and not forgiving somebody is like holding on to a hot coal. It's doing nothing but burn you and hurt you. And the moment you let go, the moment you find relief. So number one, having grace in business is important by just cutting out negativity in your own life, not perpetuating it in your own life. And you're above that. You don't need that. Take the L, move on. Reason number two for why you should have grace in business is because people talk. And if you're not going to be the bigger person, keep your mouth shut and treat other people with respect if you're frustrated afterwards, you're going to miss out on opportunities. I'm thinking about one very particular time. We'd been hit up by this brand that we were unbelievably excited to work for. They have a very large fan base. There's a lot of attention around them. And we had some cool personal connections, and we were really excited to be able to do it. And it felt like no matter what we did or how much value we tried to provide, they just wouldn't pay. Like they wouldn't really like pay us what we felt like we were probably worth. And we were putting in a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it just didn't feel like we were really getting much out of it. It definitely felt like they were winning. And what happened was I was frustrated. And our team was frustrated. And there were times where, mostly talking among ourselves, we expressed frustration. And there were even a few instances where, somebody would ask me about the brand or projects that we did. And, I'd be like, oh yeah, it was fine, whatever. And even just having a little bit of that negative tone with it, and not being positive and kind and reassuring and validating about that brand and the experience working with that brand. Interestingly enough, we haven't had any jobs from them for quite a while. I don't know if anything got back to them, and really it doesn't matter. But to me, it was just a lesson for, one, I was perpetuating negativity, and number two, I believe that we are missing out on opportunities when we are ever speaking negatively or ever being unhappy. Reason number three for why you should have grace in business is because if you're trying to be a good person, it's just good practice. And I think a lot of us separate our personal lives and our business lives. And at the end of the day, what you do in business is a direct reflection of who you are as a person. If you're dishonest, if you're spiteful, if you're talking behind people's back, if you're being unfair in any way, like that reflects on you as a human, even if you're just doing it in the name of business. And I'm really talking about this. Nothing really spurred this on other than kind of just self-reflection and looking at, I really try in my life to be a positive person, to be an uplifting person. But there are times where I do not do this well, and I do not do this perfectly. And I think about, who are the people I enjoy spending time with? It's the people who are gung-ho about life, who are excited about the projects that they're working on, about the people that they're working with, and overall constantly are giving the benefit of the doubt to other people. When I think about times where maybe I was frustrated, but I decided to try to take a higher road, I still went the extra mile, not in a way of getting taken advantage of, but in a way of trying to just be a good person, and good business practices, the customer's always right, and try to take care of them. And when I put that into practice, I've kept my mouth shut when I've had opportunities to say things to other people or to gossip or engage in anything like that. Sometimes those people who I didn't even know if I'd ever get another opportunity or job from become some of my biggest advocates and have led to so many opportunities with me where maybe my first or second interaction with them wasn't great, but I kept my mouth shut and opportunities came. And so I think that really is a lost art, especially in the world of social media, especially in the world where everybody just feels like they constantly need to have their voice heard. They constantly need to be validated and to, have an enemy almost. I think it's better, no matter what, you're always going to have enemies. That's just a fact of life. Whether you are being the best or kindest person in the world or the meanest person in the world, you're always going to have enemies. But try to live your life in the way and be the kind of person that you are removing any real opportunity for somebody to truly have grounds to be angry with you. And if you can try to live your life beyond reproach and in a way that is honest and good and kind, that will not only majorly affect you as a business person in a positive way, it will also help you feel better about who you are as a person. Because again, the film industry, especially here in Utah, the business scene, especially here in Utah, is very small. And so anybody listening, I just want to encourage, be the kind of person who's kind, who's positive, who has grace in business. And I'm telling you, that grace and that positivity, that kindness, the effort that you put out will return to you tenfold. Okay, one last story about having grace in business. We had just started the podcast department here at Film Lab, and Talmadge, my brother who's recording this podcast, he was kind of spearheading the whole thing. And we had an opportunity where we brought on a new podcast. We helped film things for them, get photography for it. We even had people who had designed and done a bunch of stuff for it. And we helped successfully launch their podcast. We were doing it at an extremely reasonable rate. It was so much effort that was being put in, but we were not getting paid very fairly. But we agreed to it. We were willing to do it. Over the course of the next few months, there were many instances where we were getting asked to record more than we'd agreed upon for the price, where we were getting asked to edit more than we had agreed on or planned. We were constantly getting undermined and not supported. And there was just a lot of negativity around it. And we were new in this side of the business. Talmadge was new to trying to manage and run this, and we were busy doing all this production stuff, so we weren't there to support as much either. And it turned into this very kind of frustrating cycle where we were putting out massive amounts of effort and we were kind of being returned a very disingenuous compliments or just outright like hostility and negativity. So after 16 or 17 podcast episodes that had been recorded, edited, and a lot of them had been pushed live, we were notified that they were going to go with somebody else who was cheaper and they were going to move on to something else. Honestly, gratefully, we're like, okay, that makes sense. That's totally fine. You can move forward with doing that, because we were relieved, because we felt like we were kind of trapped in this agreement that was difficult. We said, sounds good. Let's just kind of settle up. And when we laid out the math that we'd agreed upon with them before, and again, I should say we did not have a contract because we were very trusting of these people. When we tried to lay out the math, and I think in total we were asking for like $3,000 at the end of all of it for 16 or 17 podcast episodes that had been recorded, edited, uploaded, all that stuff. And they refused to pay. And in fact, then started turning it around on us and saying a lot of negative things and very painful, frustrating things that hurt us, that attacked us personally, attacked Talmadge personally, who's my brother. And then not only did it didn't stop there, they went and started saying things to a bunch of other people, and they started very openly attacking us. And at first, we were pretty up in arms. I mean, we were hurt. We were very frustrated because we put in so much effort. And yeah, we didn't do everything perfectly. We were still learning. We talked to them about being guinea pigs, but overall, the quality that we delivered was on par and even exceeded, we think, in many instances, what we'd agreed upon. But for whatever reason, it wasn't up to the standard that they had wanted, and it wasn't what they expected. And so as they started talking, saying things to us, saying things to other people, our first reaction was to start fighting and was to be angry. What we did is we were very thoughtful, and rather than responding back to an email or to a call immediately, we took time to think internally about what kind of people do we want to be and how do we want to respond to the situation. And as we took the time to ask ourselves those questions, the way we would respond, the way we would communicate afterward was so much more intentional, was not a reaction to something. It was very professional. It was much more kind and not personal. And in the end, we tried to play the role of the bigger man. And we ended up, it took months. We didn't even get paid the full amount that we'd initially expected, but we were able to get out of it and walk away. And, it was a difficult experience, and it really tested us internally for how do we want to react, what's the kind of way we want to do business. But I am so grateful that that is how we tried to approach it, because we had grounds, we had evidence, we had a lot of things that we could have done or said, rumors we could have started, gossip that could be engaged in with other friends or people that we know. But we tried to really refrain from that, and we tried to give the benefit of the doubt, and also for our own sake, let ourselves move on. So yeah, at the end of the day, did we make very much money? No. Did we get paid what we probably deserved? No. And was it kind of a negative experience? Yes. But we learned a lot of lessons from it, not only in how to have better business practices, but also we realized how important it is to be the person that you said you would be, to live up to the values that you have always preached and start putting them into practice. And again, it was difficult. We didn't gain anything from it other than a sense of self-worth and value and saying we did our best. We weren't perfect, but we did our best. And we tried to be respectful and professional after all of it. So again, this is just an invitation for those of you listening. It's time to be the bigger man. It's time to have grace in business. Don't engage in gossip. Don't engage in talking cruelly or being dishonest in any way. Be mature, be fair, and you will win in the long term.